you,
Yes,
and then additional material is submitted.
right.
Is that all kept? So when we look at it for the meeting, is it all together? Is there like a
It's
pack for each applicant?
package as far as I can do it a week before. And then if anything else comes in, I send separately, but it's all on the website.
So there's not a way to set up like a file for each applicant and add to it, and then you click on it.
That's done on the website. You can do it there. As far as getting stuff, I can only give it to you when I get it. So I try to get as complete a package as I can a week ahead of time for you.
With it. Okay. So like there's the Metatoma application package, but then you just sent a couple new things.
I did, yes.
So there's not a way to have a file for, let's say, Metatoma and have the application and any new submittals. So it's all
And
together.
on the website, that's what happens. Everything for the,
Oh,
you'll have to excuse me, I was away up until last night on vacation, so I did the best I could, Jack.
okay.
Doesn't it all, like, even when you get later things, you still put them, they still go on.
They should be.
Yeah. So it should all be done.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order, and again, my apologies. I've got a computer glitch tonight. I can't get into Zoom, and so I'm on the phone. It's really awkward and difficult, but it's what it has to be tonight, I'm afraid. We don't have a great deal on the agenda, fortunately. We do have the public hearing on the land use ordinance revisions, and my understanding is that there are no members of the public present for that. Is that correct?
I believe so. Who's on Grace's eye? Would you just check in?
Grace Keene. She lives here.
Okay. So the
Is
only,
there
there's one
anyone
person,
present on the call?
Grace
What's
Keene is
that?
the only one. Just one person.
Okay. Grace, do you have comments or questions about the proposed ordinance revisions?
I do not.
Okay. All right.
Just
Thanks.
curious.
Is there anyone else who has comments? I will open the public hearing on the proposed land use ordinance revisions. There have been notices that were posted and published about the nature of those changes. And there are some specific changes that are on the town website with regard to those ordinance changes. Generally, they relate to the section on non-conforming structures. There is an administrative piece allowing electronic submissions of applications. There is a piece about screening of storage facilities. And finally, limitations on the number of docks on a single parcel, which follows state rule. So if there is anyone who wanted to provide comment or has a question about those changes, please let us know. This would be the time for that. Okay. Is there any further discussion that planning board members would like to have about the proposed LUO revisions? We had discussed them at some length last time, and there were some modifications made as a result of that discussion. For instance, I recall that Jan had made the comment during our conversation that reorganizing the non-conforming structure would be helpful, and Jack and I worked to do that. And so the proposal that is out there that is being heard tonight does include a fairly extensive reorganization of that section for ease of use and clarity. I also presented the revisions to the select board last week. They had a public hearing on proposed warrant articles and the budget, and I had presented a summary of the changes that we're proposing at that meeting. There was one comment from the select board, which was a concern about the impact on business in town, specifically requiring screening for storage facilities. But that is the only comment that was made at that time. So
Oh,
is there any other?
We have one other member of the public came in. Carol Dorenbos is here.
Okay, all right. Carol, I opened the hearing and was asking if there are any residents who have comments on the proposed changes, and if you have comment that you would like to make, I would take that now.
I would love to.
If you would stand so the camera can see you.
Okay, I'm the one that made the comment at the select board hearing. I heard from somebody that was a prospective business owner who was expanding his business, that he was going to another town because he was required to screen his new addition to hide his expansion of his business behind like a row of shrubbery or a screening. And so when I heard this the other night from Paula, I asked exactly what do you mean by a screen? And she said it was a fence or vegetation to cover what would be a warehouse or something of that nature. And I asked if it was new or old businesses, and she said just new. My concern with that is why is that necessary? Why are we requiring that or thinking about that? I didn't know what brought this about.
Well, I can respond to that generally, and others may have something they'd like to say as well. I think the reason that it came up within the planning board discussions was not only in Reedfield, but elsewhere across the countryside, there really is a proliferation, particularly of self-storage units. And generally speaking, they're quite commercial, industrial looking buildings. And depending on where they're located, if they are in a village setting, for instance, part of what our ordinance considers is whether they fit in with the character of the surrounding properties and the area in which they're located. And so especially in a situation where, if they're located right in the village, for instance, I think the ordinance envisions that screening is a method of keeping that kind of a structure from view on public ways or from abutting properties. There are other types of facilities or structures that might be required to use screening, depending, on the nature of those and the nature of the business. But looking at the performance standards in the land use ordinance, I think the consensus was that it would it made sense and was consistent to include storage facilities under that requirement. Jack, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that.
Well, I think it was Cliff or someone had made a comment that a number of towns, and I read the other day that West Gardner was thinking of banning these facilities because they're such an eyesore, particularly in rural areas. So we didn't decide to ban them or anything, but we decided to screen them where it's practical to do so, we have a waiver provision that you don't have to screen it if there's a good reason. So for example, the storage facility in Route 17 that used to be the church, that probably wouldn't be practical to screen that. But the addition that he was going to put down the hill behind it, what we worked out with John Cushing was that it's largely screened anyway because of where he was putting it, but we would look at it during the winter and see whether he offered to plant additional trees to screen it if we felt that was necessary. But I don't think he ever did the second piece.
That's
Yeah.
exactly who I'm talking about, because he did go to Sydney with the expansion of his business.
Well,
But
I find that very weird because he was totally agreeable to looking at the facility after it was built, and we would look at it during the winter and he would plant additional trees if necessary, and he said it was no big deal. So I find it weird
Yeah,
that he would leave town for that reason when he told us that it was no big deal to plant a couple of trees, maybe. That was all it's going to be.
If
I
could play-
didn't get this
Down the
directly
hill.
from John, but my understanding is that he built elsewhere because he wanted initially when he came before the planning board, he wanted a building that was in excess of 5,000 square feet. And in order to accommodate a building that large, it would have to go through the commercial industrial zoning process. And he didn't want to do that. And my understanding was that he decided not to build it here because he wanted something bigger than what the ordinance allowed in that location.
I think there were many reasons why he went elsewhere. That's one that he mentioned to me. So what I see in requiring a new visit, first of all, we need business in Reedfield. Our downtown looks like a ghost town. It adds to our tax base. It helps us pay for our costly high school and school budget, which is the bulk of our budget. By requiring them to do a fence or a shrub hedge, and we're talking, if you want to scrub a shrub hedge to mask something, you're talking about mature trees. That's going to cost thousands of dollars. And if you think of the maintenance on it, you're going to have to either weed whack or mulch or something to additional cost, and versus just mowing a strip of grass. You're going to have to leaf blow. If it's a fence, again, you're going to have to like keep it nice and clean, or the front of the hedge or the fence is going to look awful. Someone mentioned the other day that is actually also someplace someone could hide to break into the facility. I didn't think of that, but that was an unusual comment. I just think we need to be proud with any business that we get in Reedfield, and welcome them and not be anti-business in any way, shape, or form, because I think we could really use it. That's just my take on it. I've done all I can to promote the businesses we have, because they're not downtown, they're scattered all over town in people's homes. So we've tried to make them aware of them. I don't think it's a good idea. That's just my 2 cents.
If I could clarify,
Thank you. What should,
Paul, yeah, if I could clarify a couple points, put maybe some people's heads to rest. I did speak to Mr. Cushing yesterday, and he has a piece of property and he is moving forward right here in town with another storage shed.
Okay.
The storage shed over by the church, I believe, is gonna be finished, and so we haven't lost anything, and we're gonna be gaining another storage facility that's gonna be off the beaten track.
So what's he
So-
doing with the permit for the one that we granted off 17 behind the church one?
Once he's finished, he will contact you to take a look at it and see if you want anything done.
Oh,
Yes,
so
I
he's still
so he
building
is
it.
still,
From the road,
So he's still building it, Chip?
yes,
Oh,
But not there. Yes, there?
he's still gonna be doing it there. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it took me a while to even notice there was the
Yeah,
one
yeah,
there,
yeah.
right, the first one behind the church,
Right,
in my opinion.
Sorry, Chip, I just want to make sure I understand what you said. So John still is building the one on Route 17?
Yes, ma'am, and also he's in the process of acquiring a property off one of the roads to build another one.
Oh, so two businesses.
Yes,
All right. And you know, I do want to point out too, one more point about the ordinance and the requirement for screening. There are general site review provisions that allow the town to require screening in general for, you know, structures, businesses, and so forth, depending on the circumstances. And it was that general provision that the planning board was looking to when it placed the, well, potentially the requirement for screening, you know, using the Cushing property as an example. And as Jack pointed out, what we said there was that, you know, we would look at it upon completion, and if it seemed appropriate, you know, Mr. Cushing had agreed to do some screening, but we all agreed at the time that, you know, perhaps it wouldn't even be necessary, but that we would all look at it again. But that is under the general site review provisions, and we've invoked that particular provision a number of times, you know, for different types of activities in town. So that exists regardless of whether or not this this change to the performance standards is adopted or not. So anything further on that issue? And
One other
the
thing-
planning board,
One other-
we can talk about.
yes, Paula, I just got communication from Cushing that warehouse is finished.
Okay.
So.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
Okay, so nobody's seen it. We probably don't need screening about, but we'll take a look at it.
Right.
Okay.
So is-
Any further on the screening issue before
that
we leave
question-
that for now?
Is that question on the warrant?
Currently, it's in the package that has been put forward as part of the warrant article.
And I wanted to point out that we already require screening of manufacturing and other processing activities in certain zones. And so this is just making clear that if you have an outdoor storage facility, that should be screened too. I mean, so I'm saying we already require screening of similar sort of buildings and activities. So this just clarifies that these sort of warehousing facilities should also be screened. Although we can waive the screening requirements if necessary.
Okay. Anything further on that? Carol, anything further you'd like to put forward?
Yeah.
Are there any others who would like to make comment on the proposed revisions? Any aspect? And planning board members, are there any outstanding issues that any of you have? Any comments or points of discussion, anything that you would like to talk about with regard to that revision package? Okay, hearing none, I would take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Is
Second.
there a second?
Bill
Been moved and
seconded.
seconded.
Bill did.
Any discussion?
No.
If not, I will take a vote. Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes,
and Paula, yes. Okay, thank you. And again, I need to apologize again. This is really awkward for me doing this on the phone, and regrettable. So please bear with me. The second issue on our agenda tonight, we have two applications before us for completeness determinations this evening. So it's completeness only at tonight's meeting. And the first of those is the Fortini application. This is on Novus Point Road for the construction of a foundation under a seasonal cottage. At the last meeting, we had determined that the nature of the improvements to that property constituted changes that likely required an approval for a seasonal conversion as well as the foundation. And so that was discussed with the Fortinis, and they did provide additional materials regarding the conversion aspect of this application. We had talked also about the fact that this application, which falls under Section 4, the non-conforming structure section, it requires that the structure be moved back to the greatest practical extent, if possible, when considering the construction of a foundation. And so the other piece of information that the Fortinis provided was that evaluation of greatest practical extent and the feasibility of moving the cottage when the foundation was constructed. So that is
Where
another
is it?
aspect of it.
Where is that material?
That is, I think that Chip had forwarded it separately, but it is one of the, those materials are part of the planning board meeting agenda for tonight. And so it's one of the files at the beginning of that agenda. And it says Fortini conversion materials, or
Okay.
3, and 14 was the meeting that we had to cancel due to weather, so.
And this covers greatest practical extent?
Yes, there is information in there. You know, obviously we didn't analyze it yet, but they did provide some information about greatest practical extent. And one other issue with regard to this application, we might want to, particularly with regard to the greatest practical extent standard, it likely would be prudent to schedule a site visit in order to take a look at it and to, you know, make a firsthand determination of the location of the building, the possibility of moving it, and so forth. So I just put that out there for your consideration. I'm not sure, are the Fortinis in the meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
I would, good evening to both of you. I would turn it over to one of you, and perhaps you could summarize for us your application, including the conversion materials that we had talked about at the first meeting, and just give us an overview of what the application looks like at this point and the materials that we have in front of us that you've provided.
Okay. Well, I felt like I actually retyped a lot of the information that was on the original application for permit, but there were a few additional questions in general that we just answered. Let me see if there's anything that's kind of outstanding. To me, I feel like there's really nothing too outstandingly different from all the information we gave before. I don't have it in front of me because, well, it's a long story, but I don't have it in front of me. I did update the, I got some feedback from Bellavance Construction Company, and I updated information on the erosion control plan and a little bit more on the stormwater plan. And I also shared parts of the ordinance with him about some of the details on stone all the way around, crushed stone runoff trenches. And he agreed to all of the shoreline special considerations. Would not be a problem for him. He is a certified, I think DEP might be the right word. He said some of those items should be as needed. He says all of the things listed there are like riprap, sod, erosion control blankets, or mulch. He says sometimes you need all of those things, and sometimes it makes sense on what you do and don't need. So for instance, like sod in general, there is no grass on this property. So he didn't really think that that would be, say, for instance, something that we would even grow in all the shade. He did say that he carts off any soil that he digs up each day. So he does that to minimize any kind of stormwater runoff situation that might develop during the project. So that's kind of that part of it. And then I guess as far as being able to move the whole foundation into a different location, the information was a repeat of what we kind of said verbally, which was that the lot is either mature wooded lot or it's cleared where the septic tank and the leach field is located. So if we were going to move it back, I think there'd be quite a bit of trees that would need to be removed and taken down. And maybe it would be best to go look at it because I'm just describing. I sent some pictures, I think, to try to show all of that. And I know the direction of which the house would be most beneficial to move away from the lake is what unfortunately runs right into the first part of the septic system, which I think is the holding tank. So kind of in a nutshell, that really is the summary.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
I had a couple
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
Well, one is I agree that we should do a site visit so all of us can see it. So I think that's a good idea. And the second question I had was, what is meant by crushed stone requirements will be followed as described?
Oh. So underneath, so on the second page of the application for building, sign or use permit, which was like the seasonal over to year round, the very last part of the second page is shoreline special considerations. Item number 5 says crushed stone runoff control trenches shall be installed on the eave sides of all structures. Trenches shall be a minimum of 1 foot deep, blah, blah, blah. He's going to do all that. He says he puts this around all sides of the structure upon completion. So that's, I believe, what I meant with that. Does that was like a specific item
Where,
that I
where's,
had really talked about in any of the other application materials.
I
It got
can't,
a little disjointed with
oh, I see.
this application, that application, so
I see it now.
yeah, number 5 there.
Thank you.
So that was interesting to him. He said he would follow that, but he actually does a little bit more than that. He goes around all 4 sides. That's his normal procedure.
Don, what do you think? You're on mute.
About the crushed stone specifically, Jack, or?
Yeah, and erosion control. I mean, stormwater management.
I think I'm gonna defer till we get out there and take a look, because it's really, this is just one of those that I just really can't. I mean, I think what they've got there, in using a DEP certified contractor, my thinking is it will probably be fine, but I think when we look at it, there might be some specific things that we might have a concern about.
Okay.
Yeah, we appreciate the fact that you'd be willing to take the time to go out and take a look for us.
That's what they pay us the big bucks for.
Uh-huh. I'm not gonna argue with that.
Okay.
So-
Any other questions about the applications for the 14s from planning board members? And again, just a reminder that tonight we're looking at this whole package for completeness only, so.
Yeah, I guess the one thing that would have been helpful on the site plan, you've got the leach field on there, but you don't show the septic tank, which, but that becomes a critical element in your
Yeah,
comment about because when I first looked at this, I said, well, it looks like, maybe they could go back 10 feet.
yeah,
But that's what you're telling me is that where the tank is.
yeah.
makes that-
Correct. The
Different.
tank's about 4 to 5 feet off the corner of the house.
Mhm.
So there is a sketch that that my husband sketched up that was in the original package. That was before we hired a company to come out and do this work, where he showed the leach field. And in my husband's hand sketch, he did show where the holding tank is.
And when you say holding tank, I'm assuming
Well,
it's a regular septic tank, because you've got a
Yeah,
leach.
it's a septic, yeah, it's a septic tank. He
Okay.
actually was there when they installed it. Yeah, it's some cement thing, I believe. So.
So is that a sketch?
Provide the board with
As,
the,
or-
I can provide the board with the subsurface permit, which has all that laid out.
That would be good.
Is that some, excuse me, I guess we were desperately looking for our sketch. Is there something, did you say we need to provide?
No, Chip's gonna provide it to us.
Oh, okay. All right. For some reason, I can't go on, yeah, anyways, in the original submittal, it was the document that shows where all the abutters driveways are and where our driveway is and a bunch of
Try
stuff.
to mute the video.
I can't. Okay.
Start video.
Connie, don't worry,
I-
I'll just use the subsurface permit.
Okay. I don't know, was it marked off at all, Dwayne, when it was put in? I know you were there.
The tank,
Yeah,
Mark Burtwell.
did he mark it? I mean, are there any kind of like posts or,
The tank itself, no, the leach field, yes.
yeah,
So there's 4, I mean, that's probably what the gentleman picked up when he did the site layout. there,
Right.
Was the 4 posts in the leach field.
yeah. And that would be the best direction to move it away from the closest edge to the lake.
All right, so you'll provide that, Chip, correct? The,
I will.
okay. Planning board members, any other questions or issues to raise about the application's completeness? Okay, if not, I would take a motion on the question of completeness of the application.
So I'll move that we find the application complete. We schedule a site visit and a public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion and a second to find the application complete, schedule a site visit and the public hearing. Any discussion? I will take a vote. Jack,
Yes.
Don,
Yes,
George,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jan,
Yes,
and Paula, yes. Okay, so our next regularly scheduled meeting would be on April 11th. And likely the simplest thing to do would be to try to schedule a site visit either on that date or, you know, in the past, we've also, we've done some Saturday site visits if it's more convenient for planning board members. So what is your pleasure in that regard?
Oh, do we,
I don't think it
do
would.
we have the Roy one to do also?
Yes.
We do. We do have that one to do. I don't know if we want to do that the same, you know, the same time or not, but yes.
It stays light out till 7 o'clock, so we could, if people can, I mean, I'm retired, I can do whatever, but we could do both of them. We do one at 5:30, one at 6 or something.
I'll take a poll on over the next week, see what everybody wants.
I would say probably holding off till that day is probably good in that it gives the more time for the snow to melt, so that would help.
Yeah, yeah. Others, do you have a preference with regard to when we schedule a site visit? Dan,
that-
George, Bill?
sorry, I could also do a little earlier if folks wanted to.
Earlier on the 11th, is that what you're talking about?
Correct, earlier in the day on the 11th.
Okay. Well, why don't we do that, Chip? We can put out an email and get a sense of people's preferences and limitations, and then we can set a time for that. Unless, you know, if everyone's comfortable with just setting it tonight, we can do that too. George and Bill, are you okay for the 11th if we were to do it then?
Yes.
Yes, in the afternoon, late afternoon, evening, I am, yes.
Okay.
Can we
All
do
right.
both of them?
Yep,
Yes.
Um,
Let's see.
so if we have a 6:30 meeting, I think we'd have to do it
One at
earlier than 5. I think that, you know, trying to do one starting at 6 wouldn't allow us to get back in time for the meeting. So what if we were to do one at 5 and one at 5:30? Would that work for everyone?
Works for me.
Yeah, I think we should do the Fortini one first.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that works for everyone?
Yes,
Fortini at 5 and Roy at 5:30.
Logistically, I don't know how we're gonna meet over. Way over in Novus Point at 5 and then be over
Horsey.
on Theory.
Right.
Torsi
Maybe
by
we should-
5.
Maybe we should
There you
meet a
go.
little earlier.
Yeah.
Because it's a drive from Fortini's to Roy.
Why don't we
Should be
wait?
like 3:30.
Again, I don't think we're gonna be able to walk down on Roy's property on the 11th, so why don't we hold off and see what the looks like?
Novus Point is, we're gonna start in Winthrop, make our way all the way. Yeah. It's gonna, that's gonna take a while.
All right. Schedule Fortini for 5 o'clock and set the Roy application aside for the moment. Chip, there's a lot of snow down there still. Is that what you're saying?
Steep slope, as we know, and the road's very muddy and his property isn't very friendly. I'll do a walkthrough. Let you know.
Okay. So let's go with 1 on the 11th. 5 or 5:30? Want to do 5 o'clock? Meet there at 5? Does that give everyone enough time? Can you make it at 5?
Yes.
yes.
Yes,
All right, Fortini at 5 on Tuesday, the 11th, and we'll schedule the Roy visit separately from that.
Unless it's all clear by then, we could do it. We could do the Roy's at
Yeah.
4.
Road's not gonna be clear till June.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Fortini. We appreciate you engaging with us on this tonight, and we will see you again on the 11th of April, and the formal public hearing will be held that evening, as well as the site visit, as you just heard, and the board will deliberate on the application at that point as well. So again, thank you.
Well,
Did-
thank you. I have 2 questions, if I may. First
Sure.
question is, I believe I read that it's our responsibility to notify all of the abutters about this meeting on the 11th. Is that true? Is that the
Take care.
process?
I will
Chip,
take,
you put the note.
I will take care of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. And then the second question is, could one of us anyways, be at your site visit at our property, or is
Oh,
that?
absolutely. If
Okay,
if you can make it, we would definitely prefer that if you could join us.
Well, Dwayne's retired,
Yeah.
so he could definitely do it. All right. Is that it, Dwayne?
Okay.
Thank you all for your time, and we look forward to the 11th.
Okay. Thanks very much and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Hey, Woody. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, we have our other applicant for Manitoba ready.
Yep. So the second application that we're examining tonight for completeness is the Manitoba Camp Road Association. And this is an application also for a new foundation under a non-conforming structure, which, as I understand it, is a historic community building down in the Manitoma development.
I had a
And
question for
who
Chip.
is? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was that?
I had a question for Chip, which is
Yes.
the application from Camp Manitoma here. It's not the application that has the non-conforming structure information on it that asks those questions about greatest practical extent and lot coverage and all that.
I believe I sent that out to you.
Well, I'm looking at the land use application. It doesn't seem to have that.
Let Woody do his presentation. We'll see what we
Okay.
have. Okay.
Where would you like me to start?
Right at the top.
Well,
At the top.
if you could please, summarize your application, what you intend to do, and what your application seeks to do, and also talk a bit about the pieces of information that you provided in the application, and give us an overview of those as well. Everyone has what was provided, but it would be helpful if you could go through that and summarize it and highlight the pieces that you think are particularly important and relevant to what you're proposing. So I'll turn it over to you.
Well, let me start by saying that this is a 100-year-old building, roughly. It was part of a boys' camp at the time. It was condoized in the early 80s. Sold off by Jim Lawrence here. And the building in question is what's called the Craft House. It was constructed on sills, never had a proper foundation. Years and years ago, it started to migrate toward the lake. In other words, it's many years ago, and there were attempts then to stop that. They constructed a barrier perpendicular to the building on the high side of the location. It's located on a very steep 30% grade bluff. That one piece of concrete actually served as a dam and eventually pushed the building somewhat, and we don't know how far, toward the lake. So part of this will be to raise the building, undo what was done generations ago, and put a proper U-shaped foundation under the building. Then that's one part. The second part is then, and let me back up a little bit. We took have taken measurements using a plumb bob and a rebar. For the last 8 years, it has not moved. In other words, that part of it is historical, whatever was happening to the original building. That is historical, that is not currently moving. What is really concerning is that there's, and part of the application shows, we have a picture in 1970 of what the shoreline looked like then. At that point, it was railroad ties and who knows what other. In the early to mid 80s, actually probably the late 80s, that was taken out. There was a beach at that point that was grassed over, and a riprap wall constructed from the building. Roughly, I would guess 300 feet of it was constructed at that time, which stopped just about 10 feet short of the craft building. Now, over the years, we have a real problem on Lovejoy, and in the high-power boats and wave have really severely eroded all of the parts that were not rip-wrapped in the 80s. So was an inconvenient situation where the building itself wasn't moving has been made more or less of an emergency situation, because it has undermined 5 posts which are supporting a deck covered by a roof. And should those posts go, no big problem during the summer, but in the winter, if the ice action is such, if those posts should go, there's a fair likelihood the whole structure will be launched into the lake. In other words, it's a pretty dire situation right now. We have photographs of that in your packet. The latest one shows that we brace the posts to prevent that from happening, but honestly, we won't know until the ice is out. We can't rest easy until the ice is out. So our request is basically to construct a U-shaped foundation, and to fill in roughly 300 square feet of shoreline, restore that basically, using riprap and bringing it up 1 foot above mean high water level. So that's the 2 parts of our project. Where it sits is, we've had, our concern is that there is a lot of very mature, probably 6 foot around pines, very close to this building. In fact, if we actually hired a forester to come take a look at it and say, what can we do to dig this? Can we dig this? Before we went for funding. And he had us look up and he said, well, we can see the canopy and the roots roughly equate to your canopy. So that we are in a situation that is, we're gonna have to use very small machinery. At his suggestion, we have altered the route for taking away the spoil, and carrying it down and then up the bank rather than coming right straight up the bank. He'd said originally just go underneath the building and take it out that way. Can't do it because of the trees. There's also a road, there's steps, there's erosion control of the 30-mile rivers down on one side. So again, where we're sitting today is that jack the building up right where it is, pour a foundation, drop it back down, fill in 300 feet of fill with appropriate riprap. That equates to roughly 1 double axle dump truck. In other words, that's the amount of fill, roughly the amount of fill we need. We've hired or contracted with Scott Horn, who is a licensed waterfront provider. And we'll do the construction work. We've also made arrangements with their engineering out of Farmingdale to provide the floodplain information for us for that. But basically this is something that has to be done, or that will be literally be taking it out of the lake. We have approached membership this last summer and have secured funding for roughly between $70,000 and $90,000 for the project. So and we're at this point just kind of just going through. We have the PBR with no problem, the Corps of Engineers with no problem, well, here we are. So,
And did you actually receive the approvals from DEP and the Corps yet?
yes,
Package.
it's in the package.
Oh, is it? I saw the application, but I didn't see the actual approval.
Oh, well, that's kind of an interesting scenario there. In that you submit it to the state, with absolute proof that you paid your filing fee. And you wait 2 weeks, and if you don't hear anything, then in 2 weeks, your application's approved. So there was never any actual paper acknowledgement come back from that. However, I did talk with somebody, I may not have that here. And I have a number which is in your packet, of a approval number from that person saying, yes, we have, our permit by rule application was accepted.
Okay.
And I,
What about the core?
the core, that's in the packet as well, the whole, I think I sent the whole, so, piece that they sent to us. I think I sent that too. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
Chip, is the core approval in the packet? I didn't see it. I'm looking again and I still don't see it. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
That's kind of humorous, because it's been in here for weeks, and I took it out just before I came. But it,
We have it. I'll supply it if you don't have it.
I'm almost positive it came.
I had two questions. One is, which page is the site plan?
Okay, the sketch,
The site plan showing distances from the water and other other
I
features.
did want, I'm sorry, that is not my strong point.
I think that might have been the extra material I sent you this afternoon. It's
Yeah.
one, there's Lovejoy Pond on it, North Road, and then the road. This one right here.
I don't see it.
I'm afraid it isn't much either, because we did that when there was quite a bit of snow on the ground and but I just,
So Chip, when did you send it?
Sent it about an hour ago before the meeting.
Yeah, I don't see the site plan though.
Yeah.
And
I'll shoot
the
it
other
out.
question, I have is, is the reason that you can't move the building back further from the water is because of the large pine trees, or what else is there?
well, there's a road there, that is 39 feet away. There is a septic pump station just beyond the other side of the road. But the road is 39 feet back, so it's, but the trees are in the teens, in other words. Again, you look up and there's roots, they've got to be growing right up next to the foundation, so. So it's mainly the reason for not moving that building would be sacrificing the trees. We had to cable one of them anyway. While the forester was there, he made arrangements to get it cabled. And on page, on the questionnaire, page 7 of 13. It says what other state or federal permits have been required. And it's, and we received the PBR number for that, and then we have a number for the Army Corps of Engineers, starting with the NAE 2022. So those are that's the document. And those were separate, obviously the one from the state. We never got any paper, but I do have a document from the Army Corps of Engineers, and they will be, there's pieces of that, of course, that need to be done as we construct it, so.
I think it would help to have a site plan that showed the distance from the water, the distance from the road, the distance from the septic system,
Well, we
utility
sort of
box.
have,
Yeah.
we sort of have, there's
Well, I don't see
the
it.
old. Yeah, well, that's what I think that's what Chip sent today, so
I don't see that.
you should have it now.
Yeah,
You see it?
Chip, the piece that, in part that Jack is talking about, and a piece that I noted that, just isn't here, is addressing the requirement in the non-conforming structure section. All of this speaks to the, the site review process, which is required. But in addition, there's the foundation language in section 4, and that's the piece that requires, an analysis of, under the greatest practical extent standard, of whether the building that's receiving the foundation can be moved back to be more conforming. And I didn't see anything in the application about that. A site plan with those features all marked on it would certainly help, but I still think we need some kind of a statement and an analysis by the applicant about whether or not that's possible or not, and why. That's something we require of every applicant under this section, and I really think we need something in the application about that.
I thought that might have been covered in the first question of the questionnaire, page 7 of 13. And it's the project is located among legacy pines whose roots will be impacted by the excavation of the foundation. Consult an arborist to, well, anyway, we were not going to be able to save the trees, remove the building. Basically, that's and again, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a site visit's worth 1,000,000.
There you go.
Because you'll know it, you'll see it right off the bat. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, there's no way to go. I mean, it isn't, so.
Yeah, and I agree that would be helpful, but we do need something that addresses that in the application.
Can you,
As a
be-
leader, we
can you
need
be
that.
specific, please? Exactly what do I need to do for that, please?
A site
the
plan would help.
Although, okay,
Yeah.
well, again, I don't know what else I can do beyond that site, but it's.
Well, I don't see this,
Okay.
I don't see the site plan that you did. That's part of the problem.
And right now, it's the last item on the email I've sent twice.
I don't think anyone has had a chance to look at that if it was just an hour ago. So,
But I don't see it.
Okay, well, there is one that exists, it isn't great, but, and I'll do another one if you
Okay.
like.
So Chip, what you sent tonight, I'm looking at, there's a list of
Six
abutters. There's a couple of drawings, but I don't see dimensions or setbacks, and then there's an aerial photo.
I sent this one about 2 minutes ago, resent it again.
Okay,
but you sent the same thing Right.
Uh,
as what Dawn is looking at.
Don, you see the one that came through?
well, yeah, I'm on a different email, so I'm going back to open that one.
Okay,
It's-
it's the
It's
last
also,
item.
Chip, why didn't they do the application that has the non-conforming structure piece to it? They did an old application, it looks like. So they haven't answered the non-conforming questions.
And Chip, that's what we need at this point is, the questions that are specific to the section 4 issues. It's non-conforming, the rationale for not moving it back if that's the applicant's position, and the map that would indicate the features that might not allow that movement of the building, and, the argument around greatest practical extent. That's what's missing.
Okay. Okay, I guess this is, I mean, okay, all right. Not a problem.
So, Chip, can you help him pull that piece together?
I will, yes.
Okay. And, you know, some of what you sent may in part address the issue, but it doesn't sound like it's all there yet. And there's a bit more that needs to be provided.
Fair enough, not a problem. And as
So
far as the
other-
site, as far as the site visit, we do not, we do have some permanent residents there. There's an upper road, that road is plowed, but in the process of plowing it, there are drifts that are created that are pretty massive. I cannot begin to tell you when those drifts will be gone. Usually once they are gone, there's no problem with access. But I would, if you're looking 2 weeks down the road, or maybe it sounds to me like you're gonna be busy 2 weeks down the road anyway, but this a month from now would be the time to be thinking about a site visit.
Now, my
And then-
recollection, something I had read in the application indicated that you're not planning the construction until next fall sometime. Did I get that right?
You're right.
Okay, all right. So there's not, I mean, you're not under a tight schedule for construction right now. So we could take a little additional time before scheduling a site visit. Is that correct?
Absolutely, I'm not, yep, you're right there. However, things do tend to drag along, and we've been, getting the contractor was a job and a quarter, so it's, so we want
Yeah.
we want to be ready in the fall, so.
No, I'm not suggesting we extend it out artificially, but I just want to make sure that,
No, you're-
at the time that
So I will work with Chip to isolate the questions that you're asking for section 4. I'll try to do a better job on the map. We don't have a CAD program, and I just not my strong point.
We'll fix this up.
Okay, all right,
And
be
the
glad to do that.
certificate from the Army Corps too.
I have, that's right there. So, okay,
So I do have a couple other questions.
far away.
Okay, go ahead.
One is, I didn't see, what is the intended use of the structure after it is saved?
Well, it's been honestly, it's been a grim building, because it was, I guess, neglected is the word. It is sound basically. But we really want to use it as basically one of the uses would be as a small movie hall for showing movies on Saturday night or whatever. Also for crafts, there's no water in there, but there are tables available. And we're looking to find someone hopefully from Aranacook, someone who'd be willing to teach crafts 3 afternoons a week for a reasonable pay.
Just for the association.
Yeah, this is just, right, just for the association. The kids were at the association. So it will continue to be a craft house. Probably as important as anything else is the storage underneath. Because it's an open space under there, and there are spaces for water toys and surfboards and paddleboards, rather, and that type of thing. So basically that's how it will be used, so.
Is that building used just for residents in that development? Or is it something that you're thinking about opening up to the general public?
Oh, heck no, just for residents.
Just residents?
Yes,
So my other question, looking at the photographs, this is actually only one of 2 structures that are about the same distance from the water line.
correct.
So what's the situation with the other building?
It's stable. No, there's no problem there at all.
And what's it being used for?
That one is used, again, it's a library. For the people, donate books and it has a spot for games at this point. Again, that probably would move to the craft building if that becomes habitable, and it's unsafe. I mean, we've had it blocked off now for a year and a half, so nobody can go anywhere near it, so.
The craft building.
Or the craft house, yes. So, but, and it also, that was the administration building at the time. That also has storage underneath for water toys and that type of thing. But currently that building is used for puzzles and as a library.
I had a question. How much higher will the building be after this new foundation's put in?
It'd be the same, that's part of the reason we're working with Thayer. It'd be the same height and the same, and depending upon what you feel, same height and same distance back, from the water. In other words, it'll be routines at all in the structure. It's basically just adding the U shape, which buckets the wall holding the freeze thaw action, from the keeping it away from the building.
You also, when you were describing the trees, you were sort of describing the trees as a problem. So but you're proposing to leave the trees?
Oh, absolutely. That's
Okay.
the problem. In other words, it's the root structure is such that again, before we decided whether we had the two options of taking it down or saving it, and it's so that in deciding that, we wanted the input from a forester as to whether we could actually do it without killing the trees, and if we can do it without killing the trees, so.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I think we have two options. We could find the application complete, contingent upon the submission of those materials that we were talking about. It may be more appropriate to move this ahead and talk about and make a completeness determination following receipt of those materials. It's fairly significant. I mean, particularly the piece about non-conforming structures and the site plan. But I don't know how the rest of you are thinking about that, so please weigh in. I'll suggest that we come back at a future meeting when the materials are received and take a look at this for completeness again, and then proceed with scheduling a hearing and site visit and so forth following that.
That sounds.
That'd be on the 11th.
Yeah, we could do that on the 11th, conceivably. Yeah, I mean, if the materials are ready, we could do that as part of the agenda.
Okay. Yep. Good.
Okay. Planning board members, everybody okay with that approach? We'll hold off on a completeness determination until we receive that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for talking with us tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on the 11th.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're cold
Okay.
tomorrow.
Done.
You're cold tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Okay, so for planning board members, the only other issue that was on the agenda for tonight was just a very kind of a placeholder for a status update on the comprehensive plan, and there's not a great deal to report in that regard. The comp plan is moving forward. There's a meeting tomorrow night. In general terms, the comments that planning board members had when we discussed this earlier have been folded into the plan, and I've done a fair bit of work on the land use chapter, and we're going to be discussing that again tomorrow night. If any of you are interested in another look at it, a revised chapter will be up on the website under the comprehensive plan page, and you can find it there if you'd like to take a look at it. And it is scheduled to go to the select board for a review and a final review by the select board, I believe on the 10th of April. So things are being completed. A lot of it will be discussed tomorrow night at the comprehensive plan committee meeting, and it's moving along fairly quickly at this point. So,
Paula, when you say it's available on the comprehensive plan page, where is that?
there is in the left-hand column up at the top, I forget how it's worded exactly, but it says something about the either materials, comprehensive plan 2023 materials or something like that. But there's reference to the 2023 plan, and all the documents are in there if you click there.
On the Town of Reedfield website?
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. So you go to boards and committees, and there is comprehensive plan committee is up there.
Oh, I see. I
And
see.
that page are all the documents.
Okay.
And I have some comments on I think the only other thing that we have on the agenda tonight is minutes. I had some comments, but I've also got a computer problem. And so I'm not able to access those right now. So I'm gonna have to push them off until next meeting again, unfortunately. But that's my.
Seems like you need the Geek Squad over there or something.
Oh, yeah, well, you know what I did? I went out and I bought a new computer last week, and I used the Geek Squad, as a matter of fact, and it's a long, boring story, but I've still got issues, and hopefully I can get them all rectified tomorrow. So.
Okay.
So anything else, anyone, before we adjourn?
Maybe at the next meeting, we can discuss that building on Route 41, that storage building. I had written to Chip about it, about whether they
Yes.
were in compliance with what we wanted. And
Yeah.
he thought that the planning to discuss it.
Yeah,
Well, if you want,
let's
he's willing to do whatever
let's
you
do
just.
that.
You're talking about the new building? The new building, yeah.
Let's make a point of that. I made a note here on my calendar, so let's include that at the next meeting. Anything else, anyone?
I have one request, Paula.
Yeah,
For with that discussion on the 11th about Brett Roberts' building, he's open to do whatever you all want. If you could provide me with some input before then, I could have some answers for you when we talk about it.
I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Which one is that? The
That's the one on
The
41.
medical? The
The
medical
boat
one?
storage. Paul, the boat storage one on 41.
Oh, okay, all right.
And
all right.
I had
So,
contacted Chip about, it didn't seem like they had complied with what they said they were doing in terms of tree planting, architectural features, or offset of the drive.
Yeah, okay. And so Chip, you said that you have, do you have additional information about that, or you just talked to him?
Yes, I submitted Jack's questions to him. He's open and he's given me reasons and he's opening to doing anything you want, but he had certain reasons about height. He didn't want to go up too high with the cupola. So I had asked,
Yeah.
back to Jack, mentioned that and said, you'll have to give some kind of determination on how you treat cupolas as architectural features and if they count in height. The other parts, he's open and willing to doing whatever you want, as long as we lay it out. So like I'm saying, if you drive by on your way down to Hannaford's and Winthrop, take note and send it to me, what you see as might be missing or you want, we can deal with it.
All right, well, let's put it on the agenda for a conversation on, at the next meeting. And maybe, everyone could try to take a drive by before then and take a look at it. It might help to formulate your thoughts. And we'll talk about it on the 11th.
And while you're at it, while you're driving up 17, Carol, I informed Carol that John Cushing called. That's why I stepped out before. Not only is the building done, but it's fully populated with customers. So Carol had her message wrong, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right, anything else, anyone? Great, thank you all. We are adjourned. Good night.
Good night, all.
Night.
See what they say when it's